Well, we all know what's going on with Nigel Farage at the moment, don't we? And this big expose of the UK banking system, namely, the poor bugger can't get an account anywhere. And I know on GB News, I think last night, he leaked a memo to do with some very damaging information on Coots after they published some very damaging revelations about him, which didn't appear to be true. Well, of course, the news organisation that first exposed all this malarkey was the BBC, and I decided to have a little bit of fun. Everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing all right. Let me know in the comments that you're well, and hope it's all good with you. Thank you very much for coming along again to the channel to listen to more of my ramblings. I very much appreciate the support. Please continue to keep doing what you're doing. It helps the channel grow, and you know, I'm very touched by all the support you're showing. Well, Nigel Farage, Coots, who's lying. I mean, for the record, I believe Farage. I'm afraid there's just too much smelly stuff coming from the other side, particularly where it first emanated from. To summarise, he was told he could no longer have a bank account with Coots, and then he ended up getting offered a personal account at NatWest, and that was it. No business account, no nothing else, no bells and whistles, just a personal account. Go on. And then you hear words like politically exposed person, wealth limits, and all the rest of it. It's like, well, you know, what really got my back up, or really what made me think, is this really the truth of it, is where it came from, the BBC. And we know the levels of trust involved there at the moment. So I thought I'd have a little bit of fun, you see. I decided to get the article where they first publicised this information about Nigel's personal banking affairs and make a complaint, because I wanted to see how effective the complaints process was, what the next steps would be if I wasn't happy, and what they actually had to say for themselves. Now, you can complain to the BBC online. It's on there, or you can just get it on Google and you say what it's about and, you know, everything else, and they get back to you. I complained about this article on Nigel Farage to do with the fact it was very biased, very politically biased. The timing of it stunk, considering there could be a general election next year. The gross invasion of the guy's privacy, publishing his public banking records, and various other things I could come up with. Had to wait a couple of weeks, and this is what they said. Dear Gabby Cabby, I didn't call myself Gabby Cabby, I used my real name. Thank you for getting in touch about our article, Nigel Farage bank account shut for falling below the wealth limit. It's worth saying from the outset that Mr. Farage himself had put the issue of his banking arrangements into the public domain, with the suggestion that banks were acting out of political motives in declining accounts. Well, he was doing more than suggesting it. He stated it, he could prove it, and there was various examples which he continues to produce of people saying exactly the same thing as has happened to them. So there was no inference there. We've been given a different explanation from an impeccable source in which we had full confidence. There was a clear public interest in publishing that alternative explanation, and we considered very carefully the issue of Mr. Farage's privacy, as the subject matter concerned his financial / banking arrangements. Well, Nigel did come out, didn't he? And he did say he had a banking problem, but at no stage did he say anything about his personal wealth, his personal finances, or even who he banked with. Well, somebody did it for him, didn't they? We had, of course, already referred to the state of his business account in his social media posts, so we considered that, to the limited extent referenced in the story, it was justifiable to mention his financial situation in order to report that the explanation he'd put forward was being denied by our source, and why that was. We also double-checked that the source was happy for us to proceed with the reporting. Well, this was the whole thing about the wealth limit, that he didn't have the amount of money in there requested to have an account with Coutts. If you looked at Coutts' website, it does actually state on there that you need X amount and X amount, but it's become very apparent, and I don't know who this source is or what research was done, evidently not a lot, that this so-called limit on Coutts' website was barely adhered to, and many examples of their customers have come out of the woodwork and said, well, actually, we got a lot less in our account than that. We've been banking with them for years. Nigel had himself. We, of course, spoke to Mr. Farage to get his response before publication, and at no point did he ask us not to publish or dispute the fact that he fell below the wealth criteria set out publicly by Coutts. In fact, he volunteered more information about his private finances, saying he'd been below their threshold for 10 years. His response was included in the piece. Well, actually, he only said that when you leaked it a few days previous. The timing of all this I have actually watched, and I don't think this goes down very well. We have widely reported the Mr. Farage line about other banks turning him down, including here. Well, he has as well. And I think that line at the end of that email contradicts the rest of it, really. We've widely reported that he's been turned down here, there and everywhere. And at the beginning, it says he infers that he's being turned down because of political reasons. In other words, they're kind of saying he's not telling the truth. And at the end, he is. Now, it just says, best wishes, BBC News website. There's no option to reply and tell them what I think of this email. There's no option to do anything else. No explanation about escalating it to another thing. In fact, you go to Ofcom if you're not happy with BBC. And there it is, left there. As a complaints process and the garbage they came back with, it isn't very good at all. And you can see right through it. It's more transparent than a glass of water sitting on my draining board. There you go. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm off. I'll see you shortly with one more. Toodaloo.